Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It's Sunday morning, a little after 11. We'll get started with questions as we normally do. On yesterday, we were looking at chapter 12 of Genesis, and we'll kind of resume there in just a little bit. But first, let's see if we have any questions or anything, any other topics anyone want to discuss.
Hey, good morning, everyone. One of the questions that I have for the group and discussing the great nation, the topic on yesterday. One of the things that I'm grateful for is I got great friends, and in this great friends that I will say is a great nation, sometimes I'm the spigot where I pour into my friendship. Some days I'm the drain where I drain the great nation to figure out things. So my question to the group is anything that you are a part of that's great, how are you contributing to the greatness and how do you extract from greatness? Um, and that's the question right there. If it's if you all view it as a fair question. Thank
Um, Before we approach that, I looked up that great in relationship to that particular scripture. And may I speak to that, George, before the response to that question?
Hey, sure.
Okay. That word comes from a root that means to be powerful or to magnify praise. It also means to be important. So if we are looking at it from the perspective of spirituality, then based upon the root from which it is extracted, I see that word as meaning to be made powerful, meaning that I will make you a powerful nation, meaning a spiritual nation, because the power that any nation has is in its awareness of its spirituality or its origin, which is spirit. So if we look at it from that perspective, or if someone sees something else differently than that, please let me know. Because if we look at it from that perspective, I think it carries a different connotation than what we have been speaking of earlier. Thank you.
This is Ron. I think the first thing that popped in my head when George asked the question is I think of how do we use that word and what are we describing if you talk about a great father, a great mother, a great leader? What is it you're describing? So a great father, you're looking at his family. The family is what you're describing there, how he takes care of his family, what he does for the people in his household. Same thing with the mother. How does she nurture her children? Or a leader over a country, over anything. So when I think of that word, if you're talking about a person, if you're really talking about a servant, aren't you? Someone who is who will diminish self, or at least take a back seat and make that time and effort to put others first. So that's the first thing that popped in my head when you said, especially when you're looking at it from as Pastor described, a spiritual from spiritual place. But that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
I think we have to look at it spiritually because it says to Abram, I will make you the father of a great nation. Then later on, what happens? His name is Abraham. Hey, he becomes is made aware of the spiritual essence of his being. So to me, it would not be speaking as we would speak of a physical father or a physical entity. Period. And the way we use it usually is in comparison to something that's superior to something else. You know.
Yeah.
So from the context of the scriptures, I see it as being a spiritually powerful nation, and which in spiritually powerful does not mean that you dominate in the sense of the way powers in this earth dominate, the way Israel dominates Palestine. That's not what he's talking about. The powerfulness of it is becoming aware of who you are, so you can bring order and balance to all of the nations of the earth. Make sense?
Well, being that you said that, Reverend Richard, and thank you for that. I'll change my question round somewhat. I would say that the friendships that I have is very endearing, and it's not so much from an aspect of how it benefits me, because I could talk about that all day. Yet, how it benefits you all, meaning that any one of you all can call my friends, which is small in number, and you can tell them, hey, George or Quicksand referred me to you. And he said that I could depend on you to buy Girl Scout cookies for my granddaughter, daughter, niece, bada bang, bada boom. They gonna eat you. So, and looking at it from the spiritual aspect of, is there anyone else a part of an arena that is endearing to you, and what do you do to enhance it? Because you're going to have to keep it at a certain level, and what do you do to extract from it to go forth in other arenas to make that arena better? Is that fair to ask?
Yeah, I think go ahead, Ron.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was only going to say I think it's any question is a fair question to ask. Yes. However, I think that when we are talking about the spiritual aspects of it, we're actually talking about the enhancement of humanity. Period. Because even though we may look at the people who are currently on this call, or who are consistently on it all the time, and see them as being the ones who the teachings enhance. I say that it goes far beyond the people who are on this call. The enhancement is for humanity. Period. So, how do we enhance humanity? By virtue of understanding or bringing understandings to the writings that speaks of who we are spiritually, and what do we extract from it. What we extract from it is not so much of what we extract as much as it is what is given to us, even though we don't know it, meaning we receive from the discussions or the understandings of this wisdom, we receive enhancements that we are not even aware of. For the most part, I would say that we cannot delineate what we receive from week to week, day to day, or hour to hour. It is more of an experience that is expressed when the need arises for it to be expressed. And even during the course of expressing it, we cannot point our finger to it and say, this is what I extracted, or this was given to me from our last encounter. So it is, all of it is truly spiritual. So it is not necessarily that easy for us to use your phone, please. It's not that easy for us to point our finger to and say, this is what I received from it, or this is the experience that I'm having from it at this moment from what I received 2 weeks ago, that kind of thing. I think that it is more of a description of who we are than it is a list of what we are receiving from it, or it is an uncovering of who we are, as opposed to us being able to point to specific aspects or specific characteristics that we have received at any given time. I hope that is clear. Thank you.
The only thing I was going to add is I think the question and really takes us into another question that I had about our discussion yesterday. The question to me shows the difference between the mind and the soul. We are concerned, and we all have family and friends and people that we are close to, and there are benefits from those relationships, of course. But what we have done, and I don't know if anybody sees it this way or look at it this way, there is nothing in the earth that can give you unconditional love like a newborn baby. I mean, the baby just the existence is love, and by operating what we're doing from the soul, just like from a baby, you're not asking for anything, but you're receiving everything. So this is unconditional love, to say, I want to see from my soul, and it leads me from expanding those relationships to all of humanity. And that seems to be, because you look at it, the relationships you have on the phone, I feel extremely close to everybody. And it is it energizes me when we have these sessions, and it helps me when I get off to get through my week. But it has helped me to see other people differently, and to embrace those who are different. So that to me is one of the benefits. And the other is, as I said, like the baby, that there are countless things that we're receiving that we can't even see. So again, to me, it is one, looking at it from a different perspective that the mind would see it, versus looking at it from a totally different universal type of perspective. So I don't know if that helped or hurt, or even, but anyway, that's my 2 cents again.
Hey everybody, this is Charles. How do that work in a way of my word is my bond, and that person is he knows what you say is going to be true. And a lot of times we work in the spiritual, but we don't know it. So now we're learning how to pick up on being in the spirit. So explain that, what I just said about your word is your bond.
I don't see the relationship. I don't understand the question, Charles.
You don't understand the question?
No, sir. Would you repeat?
Okay. It's just like when someone looks to you more than he looks to someone else, and he knows what he said is going to be true. He knows what he said, that without a doubt, he believes everything that falls, I ain't saying fall from your lips. He believes that you is action, and whatever he's asked you to do or say to do, he knows you're going to get it done without no problem. You understand what I'm saying?
But how does that fit into what
This
we're
section?
Huh?
Okay. It's just like it's about like what George was saying when the man think he gonna be he asked him to do things, he looked to George to accomplish what he had asked. And he knew that George won't let him down. And in that situation, George might not understand that he's working in, in a spirit way, but he's gonna be there for that man and his children doing what he said he's gonna do. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I'm trying to get the correlation. Anybody else can help me see what Charles is saying in relationship to what we were talking about. Because I see what he's saying, but I'm trying to find the correlation between the question that we started with.
Okay, I probably took you away from your way of your thinking. That's what I was getting from George's question. It's sort of like we operate in the spirit, but we don't know that we operating in the spirit.
Okay.
And you got me now?
So what you're saying is that when we are reaching out and doing things for other people, we are doing it from a spiritual perspective and not necessarily conscious that it is spiritual.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So if you're asking from that perspective, I will say to you that 99% of the time that is the truth, and it should be, because the more you become aware of who you are, the more you are functional as a spiritual being without even having to give thought to it. That's just who you are. I hope that helps, Charles, and the rest of you, of course. Thanks.
Yes, sir. It helped a whole lot.
George, where are you? Did that help you at all?
Yeah. I would say it helps me more than it hinders me. So, yeah, everybody was good to go. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? On yesterday, we spoke from chapter 12 of Genesis. And I think I mentioned yesterday that those verses kind of tug at me, and I've always felt that there was a lot more there than what we were seeing. And every time we go back there, we glean more and more from it. And I kept seeing myself in Abraham and what that journey looks like inside of me. Once we understood that this is who we are, this is more than a man. It is the essence of mankind. It is the spirit, it is the soul of the man that is named in this story, Abraham. And it talks about how we find that place inside of us. And so when we looked at that on yesterday again, we were trying to see what happens when he goes into Egypt, what leads him there, and how he gets there. And Barbara pointed out all the way to verse 30 in the previous chapter 11, when Sarah is barren, and Pastor gave the explanation of what that is, the barrenness being religion, and you're not being able to birth anything. And of course, he gave more details than that. If someone needs more explanation than that, we certainly can go back and look at that, okay? But then we went into it again, into 12th chapter, looking at the difference between I will make you a great nation and leaving your country. And again, Pastor explained that and what that meant, the totality of who we have built ourselves or defined ourselves to be based on your country, those boundaries or those tight quarters that you're in, that you put yourself in, and your relatives in your father's household. This thing we call culture and these lives that we've put together are all wrapped up into that. And so all of that is challenged, and he leaves and partakes on this journey. And of course, land is talking about his consciousness. He's challenging himself. He's looking at who he is and what that more is. What is this thing that's internal that is tugging at him? So and he finds himself where he builds an altar, and we didn't necessarily go into this part yesterday, but the altar being that place of sacrifice, that place where something dies, something is reborn, something is refreshed in you. So he looks at this and he recognizes that this is part of me that I want to throw off. There's something that I choose to go travel to the distant light that I see in me. And although there's darkness between me and that light, meaning there's a lot of me that I still need to explore and get to know. And as I get to know me, I know who I also know, get to know Elohim, get to know who God is. So, and he moves on, and we talked about Ai and Bethel. We've talked about that, but it takes him into Egypt, and it was at Egypt where he and Sarah go into Egypt with all of their things, their goods, and this takes place. We briefly mentioned Lot on yesterday. Lot goes with it. Lot represents a choice. If you look up the word nephew, it has two definitions. It talks about the brother's son as being one part of it, but it also talks about, I think it's 11:21, Hebrews 11, Strong's 11:21. I can't remember, and I'm trying to see in my notes. Don't remember right offhand. 11:21, where it talks about a nephew. Where it talks about it being a son, rather, it is the word ben, and Hebrews 11:51, where it talks about a brother's son. So what Lot is? Lot has opportunity to be one with Abraham. He has opportunity to do this, or to but when you look in chapter 13 and you see that rebellion between, that is Lot wanting to be on his own. That is no more than that portion of us that the journey, and I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but that is Lot splintering off and doing what Lot wants to do, which we have kind of discussed earlier. But we mainly yesterday concentrated on Egypt and some things that Pastor talked about. He talked about Pharaoh representing the mind, which I thought was the really the eye-opening part of this whole thing. And we talked about Sarah. The part that I really want to look at, again, as Pastor go into again, is the difference between why does she have to be the sister and the wife. I'm still, even though I listen to the sister is the separation of that intimacy, I'm still not quite getting that portion. But we talked about Pharaoh dealing with earthly things and the religious aspects of our lives. uh, and the wife speaking to intimacy. We talked about the relationship with the Shekinah. The mind wants to distance itself from the Shekinah or that feminine part of us. So let's any questions or comments on anything that you may have written down or thought about on yesterday before I start asking my questions?
Good morning.
Was
this
it
is
clear?
Barbara.
Yeah. Hey, Barbara. Hi.
I have a comment that hopefully will enhance some discussion. The issue of Lot, of Abram and what he did and what he said to Sarah. If Abram is us and we are Abram, that's the journey that we have to take also. So the dilemma for Abram, once this entity got to the borders of Egypt, of this cramped space, was, do I fear for my life, or do I give up my wife, Sarah, by saying she's my sister, so that both she will live and I will live? It's like this dual discussion he's having within itself. So, question is, does he choose human life or does he choose human dignity? Because the life that Sarah, that the entity Sarah would quote unquote live, Sarah's concubine or wife, has to do with the dignified part of it. Does he give up his dignity in fear of his life? So I see that as a pull and a push and a pull that he's dealing with. And the final comment I have is, Abram could have just trusted God or trusted the Creator to work it out. But how is that any different from us, who think about all of these things, the pros and the cons is what we call them. Pro if I do that, con if I do this, rather than simply trusting the Creator. What this shows me is that the entity Abram had some of the same flaws that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as well. The same discussions, the same pulls on self and on what's right and what's wrong, and what not necessarily what's wrong, but what's best. So that's part of how I saw that. And Sarah and the sister would represent my willingness to give up this an intimate part of who I am for something that I get in return, physically, rather than trusting the Creator who's been guiding him to be the answer and to provide the answer.
So, are you saying, Barbara, that the sister is more like you making a decision, I'm going to go along to get along, rather than trust the Creator?
Yes.
Thanks.
It's that willingness to give up oneself to go along to get along.
And that may make sense. The second part of that is, if you go back and look at verse 8, he doesn't really know God yet. He's getting to know himself. It says he stands in between, and I meant to look up west and east, because Bethel is on the west and Ai is on the east, and he stands between them. So he's because if he feels comfortable with himself, does he even feel you know what I mean, famine?
Me,
You see what you see what I'm saying, y'all? So I guess I'm agreeing with what Bob's saying. You know, maybe it's him not quite sure knowing what to do because he doesn't know who he is yet.
may I?
Yes, sir.
Let me see if I can make an effort to pull it together or to see what you guys are bringing together, the puzzle. Storyline. I'm Abram. I'm Sarah, and I'm Abraham. I just left St. Paul, and I think I know God because I heard their voice telling me to leave. I just left the association. I just left everything behind me because I think I know who God is, because I do feel very deeply that what I'm searching for is not to be found in those religious spaces, because as much as I've searched, I'm not been settled with the reality that God is what I've been told God is. So I'm searching for that, and truly I think I do know, but I really don't. So when I am faced with making a decision to continue to journey, to examine everything I've been taught, and I began to see that everything I've been taught is different than what it really is. And now that I am in the midst of the same people who taught me, I have to make a decision. Am I going to just make a clean break with them, and knowing that there's a possibility I'm going to be ostracized, meaning killed? I'm going to be ostracized. Or do I tend to go along with what they're saying in order to continue a relationship with them, sister? And when I make that decision, you know what? I'm not going to talk about the understandings that I've been given about the wisdom of the Scriptures. I'm not going to talk about Jesus being married. I'm not going to talk about water baptism is over with, it's spiritual baptism now. Those things I'm not going to talk about. I'm going to just sit quietly, or I'm going to just nod my head and go along with what I've been taught, because I don't want to create a problem. When in essence, what I'm really saying is I don't want to be ostracized. So I'm in this setting, and now Pharaoh is seeking to take control of me, meaning that my mind is telling me to embrace, you're embracing the sister thing, but you know that there's intimacy in what you understand. You're one with this now. So you have to make a decision. So my mind is battling with my soul. My soul is telling me Sarah's my wife, which means that my soul is saying that the light is with you. You see what you see, and you know it to be truth. And yet, my mind is telling me, in order for me to stay stable with the people who've taught me this, I must pretend to go along, which that means my sister. And at some point, my soul speaks to my mind and says to me, you know this is wrong. You know what you're seeing is right. So here I am. I'm standing to give a message, and I'm not going to talk about what I know the truth to be. So I'm going to talk about religious stuff that I've been taught. And when I open my mouth, it doesn't come out that way. What comes out is, yes, Jesus had a wife, and his wife was Mary of Magdala. No, water baptism is no longer in effect. Jesus said that when John said that when he said one were baptized with the Spirit. Now all of this is flowing. Now I am embracing Sarah as being my wife, as opposed to saying that she's my sister. I'm not going along to get along, and now I'm saying what I'm. So what happens is now I began to see something. What I began to see is that what I thought was God is not, but what I know is God is me. Why? Because now I see who I am. I see that I can't see God without looking in the mirror and seeing myself. I am Elohim, and Elohim is me. And now my name is no longer Abram, it's Abraham. Hey, because I recognize and embrace the reality that I'm this spiritual entity. And from this day forward, I no longer make any efforts to present Sarah as my sister. In other words, I stay the course of following this spiritual light. And that's what it talks about when it said the light was in Sarah's tent. I follow this spiritual light. And in following the spiritual light, now we are able to reproduce. No longer is Sarah, I see her as being barren. I see the seed that's being germinated, that's being nurtured in her womb, and as that seed is being nurtured, I speak about what I see the truth to be, and this is what's being birthed. The Isaac, the Jacob, all this is being birthed as I embrace the reality of who I am based upon the light that I see. Does that make sense so far? That's not rhetorical.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It does. Yes.
So continuing this journey, it is no. What we see is the further, the more we travel this journey, it's not so much the further we get away from religion. It is more that the more we understand it, the more we understand the spiritual, the more we see the weakness of religion itself. But at the same time, seeing the strength in religion in that it kept the word in our presence until such a time when we made a decision that we wanted to truly know what it means. And as a result of that, we have to make a decision now that we have embraced it. Now that we see the reality of this light, we have to make a decision. We can leave and go and sit in the gate at Sodom, or we can stay where we are and continue the journey. And there were those who left, and they sat in the gate at Sodom. And sitting in the gate at Sodom, what were they doing? They were sitting between the spiritual understandings that had been received and going back to the religion that they had sought to walk away from. The reason that Lot sits in the gate, or the reason that those who walk away are sitting in the gate, is because they are afraid to break with what they are familiar with. And then the time comes when upheaval takes place and everything in that religious setting begins to fall apart. COVID hits everything, and COVID causes the groups to begin to splinter, and there is nothing left to hold on to. And now we leave in search of something else. And in leaving in search of something else, when we seek to desire to return to what we just left in terms of the gate of Sodom, that it is no more because it has fallen apart. Now the decision becomes whether or not we are going to embrace what we have been shown, or whether we're going to struggle to hold on to something that's non-existent at this point. And there are those who are still, they know what the truth is, they've seen it, but they're still trying to hold on to what they know, what they were familiar with, knowing that it has no power and is non-existent and never has been, but it's always been a pretense. But yet they're trying to hold on to it because it's a just-in-case thing. I want to have my funeral at this church, and I don't want to have to pay for it. Or I want to be buried in the cemetery. I want to be a part of this group, that kind of thing, as opposed to making a clean break with it and saying that I love you, however, I cannot follow you anymore because I know what the truth is, which means that now you are spiritually aware of who you are, and you are Abraham, and now you are producing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
But I have a question too. This is Audrey.
Huh?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, I like your analogy, comparing your experience to Abraham's, Pastor, but also are we, the way I see it is that you are Abraham and we, or I just use myself, I become Lot in terms of our relationship, because then you bring me to a place where I have to decide and choose. And then when I choose the spiritual way, then I become Abraham. And now I can be Abraham for some other Lot archetype. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what this whole story is about. It's telling us that you don't wake up in the morning and decide that you're Abraham. There's a journey that you take, and even when you take that journey, there's always a choice to be made, whether or not you're going to continue the journey and become more aware of who you are, or whether you're going to sit in the gate. And even if you're not sitting in the gate, guess what? You're sitting in the tent. You're sitting in the entrance to your tent. And the reason you're sitting there is because you are the mediator. You are the one, the messenger, who is always seeking to save Lot from himself. You're the one, those who are sitting there at the gate of Sodom, you are always there with the message, making every effort for them to see the value in embracing who they are before it gets to a place where total destruction is experienced. And right now, if we look at that in relationship to where we are currently, we are experiencing the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. We are experiencing the failings of religion. We are experiencing the failings of the lies that's been told. For example, earlier I said something in relationship to Israel and Palestine. Well, Israel, that's a lie. We say Israel because we've been conditioned to say it, when in actuality it is pseudo-Israel, because they are not the people who are ruling as God rules. They are barbarians from Eastern Europe who has sought to destroy people who were in that area, and they are justifying it by taking on an image that of being Israel, when in essence they are just the opposite of that. So we are in the midst right now of seeing the failings of all of those pseudo religious pillows that we thought were stable in this world, when in actuality it was the destabilizing force for everything on earth. And that destabilization now is shifting. And the shifting of it, what we're experiencing, is because we are beginning to see that spirituality does not have boundaries around it. Spirituality is a powerful nation that cannot be kept within the confines of man's thoughts and desires. As a matter of fact, spirituality is just the opposite. Spirituality spreads out beyond our desires, because we don't know what we truly should be desiring. So our desires are open-ended for the understanding and the awareness of who we are. And when we embrace that reality, it is then that the underpinnings that we thought were the stabilizing forces begin to crumble. And that crumbling we're beginning to see right now. So rather than talking about Israel versus Palestine, we are talking about Eastern Europeans making an effort to destroy Palestine. We are talking, rather than talking about this being a Christian nation, no, this is a Christian country that has sought to enslave people economically, physically, socially, etc. And that, when the shackles of that are beginning to crumble. So the more that we embrace the Abraham as opposed to Abram, the more we embrace that, the more we be as Jesus is, as the deliverers, the Savior of humanity. And the more we embrace that, the more we see what we call chaos. And the chaos, would you mute your phone, please? And the chaos is simply the crumbling of the pillows that we thought was the stability of this globe. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments, anyone? Is this all making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Rev, Kathy said, repeat the pillow thing, what you just said.
The pillows, the crumbling of the pillows.
Yes.
We thought that religion was the we thought Christianity and the other religions were the stabilizing forces in this earth, when in actuality they are not. They are the destabilizing forces in the earth. And now what we began to see is those pillars are crumbling, and we see it as chaos. But it is the crumbling of the destabilizing forces that has kept us from being balanced, that has kept us in a place of separateness, that has brought into existence countries, places with boundaries, places that are controlled by these different religious forces. Now what we begin to see as they crumble, we begin to see the raising up of a nation. And you can only be a nation if you're spiritual. You cannot be a nation if you are not spiritual. And if you think about what what the scriptures talk about when it talks about that nation, the nation of Israel, the nation of Israel is a people who rule as God, are people who realize who they are. They embrace the reality that they are Elohim. Nation, you have to be one with the universe, one with the earth itself, in order to be a nation. Meaning that you understand that you rotate crops. You understand that that there are herbs in the earth that keeps the body alive. You understand that you don't own the land, you use it. You understand that the land itself is shared between everyone. You understand that you don't kill an animal just for sport. You only do that for survival. That's what makes a nation. You understand that if one hurts, all hurt. You understand that we are obligated to make sure that all of us are taken care of, protected, and that all of us are brought to a state of awareness as to who we are, and we do absolutely nothing that will put us in a place of in an adverse place when it comes to being one with our Creator, one with the universe, etc. Does that help?
You said you have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hold on.
Pastor, can you hear me?
Yes.
So are we saying it's not just the crumbling of the pillars of religion, but is it also the dual crumbling of religion and government? Because we've also been talking about how we see government crumbling. And so to become that spiritual nation that we are, it takes both of those strong pillars crumbling. Am I saying that the right way?
You are saying it the right way, because we have been taught that the stabilizing force has been government, and there is a separation between government and the church. However, what we have been shown the stabilizing force is religion itself, especially Christianity in this country, because government does not support religion. It is religion that keeps government stable. If you look at the onset of what we call America, or even in Europe for that matter, what you will see is that the Catholic Church is the one who established religion as a force to be reckoned with. It came to governing bodies when it joined forces with Constantine. Constantine was the secular army that forced its way. Religion was the secular force that pretended to be spirituality, that was able to control people and to stabilize what they call government for the express purpose of those who are in power reaping the benefits of that. And if you look at that from a historical perspective, what you will see is that there were no countries anywhere. There were only nations of people. There were no countries any place until religion joined forces with European armies and formed countries, and then began to destroy nations and force them to become countries. So one cannot stand without the other. So if religion crumbles, government crumbles. If government crumbles, religion crumbles. Does that help you, Kathy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So the building wall on the border is a physical kind of thing that we're trying to do as a country, but it will not last and it will not stand because there are those in the country who are spiritually oriented, spiritually minded, and are putting are feeding the macro with this unicity. So even though we can see that physical wall, we know that it has already crumbled. And I'm not just talking. I'm talking about here in the United States. I'm talking about wherever the divider is in Gaza and Palestine. I'm talking about whatever the divisor is in Russia and Ukraine, whatever the divisor is, China and Taiwan, whatever the divisor is, wherever all of these uprisings or rumors of uprisings are occurring, and even wherever these divisors are in terms of hacking, the insecurity of cybersecurity. All of these divisors are there as distractors because we know that all of these quote unquote barriers, these walls, have already crumbled. You're just seeing vestiges of what was, is what I guess I can say it that way.
Absolutely. That is exactly what's happening. And when you really think about it, especially when you look at the wall that's being constructed in this country, it's simply nations recovering the landmass that they occupied prior to it being taken away from them and country boundaries being set up. If you really think about it, because if you look at Texas all the way across to California, the Southwest, you will see that the very people who are crossing those borders are the people who are driven across those borders by the greed of Christianity and this government. So the land is being reoccupied by the original occupiers of that land. And that, to me, speaks volumes spiritually. It's saying to me, as you have named so many different places around the world where this is taking place in different forms, what's saying to me in a spiritual way is that the spiritual consciousness is beginning to overshadow the earth consciousness that has allowed for divisions that has allowed for the domination of men as opposed to the men to become one with his creator. So when I look at that, I simply see the dominance of spirituality being made visible to us. We look at it as these immigrants coming in, but they're not immigrants. These are people who own this land, not owned it, but people who were occupiers of this land before they was pushed off of it. So they are not immigrants. The ones who are calling these people immigrants are colonizers, and the colonizers are being pushed away from the land masses that the people are actually lived on, and the only reason it's happening is because of the greed of the colonizers. The colonizers went into the areas and destroyed everything that was livable, that people had to live on, and then walked away from it. Took all of the resources and depleted the nutrients in the land and walked away from it and left the people that to starve. So now, what they meant for their bad, the Creator it means for our good, which means that the nation of indigenous people are taking root again in the places where they should be. And the only way that we are ever going to see balance is for indigenous people to be in the position of a governing position of rulership. And more specifically, we are when we see the only way we're going to see balance is when we recognize that the specifics of leadership, the specifics of guidance, the specifics of nurturing is feminine energy, and that is represented by virtue of us looking historically and seeing that it was the older females in the Native American tribes, Native American nations rather, that made the decisions for the nations, as well as the same thing being whether it be in Africa or any place else where there are indigenous people, with the exception of Europe itself, and now the exceptions around the world. And when we look at how we say, well, indigenous people are mean to their women, Africans are mean to their women, Chinese are mean to their women. All of that was learned behavior that was non-existent before the advent of Europeans in these particular areas. All of this was non-existent until then. So right now we are seeing all of that changing, and we see that the powers that be recognize that, and that is the reason every effort, especially in this country, is being made to make sure that women who are entrepreneurs have no resources to help them move into that space, being entrepreneurs. Because when females are entrepreneurs, when females understand and embrace the reality of who they are, it is at that point that the whole nation begins to benefit. Mind you, not the country, but the whole nation begins to benefit. When you look at and you say, well, there's an Oprah and nothing changed. Well, Oprah is masculine. She is simply seeking to be on a parity with the rest of the male Caucasian billionaires, as opposed to recognizing the needs of the nation and being a part of raising the nation up from poverty to a place of prosperity. And I don't mean financial prosperity as much as I mean spiritual prosperity. Thank you.
One of the things I like to add to the discussion is, as it relates to Sarah, is that as a suggestion, we need to find out everything that we know about Sarah. And the thing that I bring to the table about Sarah is Sarah had a great deal of influence. And I think it would aid us in how we look at this. And all females, my opinion, in the Old Testament had a great deal of influence. When I look at Eve, I think the serpent went after Eve not because she was the weakest vessel, she was the one with the most influence. Um, Hagar, the female from Egypt, Sarah. So females do possess more intellect and intelligence than the male. That is documented going all the way back to a cable line. Um, so what is it that someone else knows? What else y'all know about Sarah? Thank you.
Sarah is Eve. Eve is Sarah. Sarah is Ruth. Sarah is Rebecca. Sarah is Rachel. All of these names that we have actually anglicized are actually speaking about feminine energy and the role that feminine energy plays in the spiritual realm, and that it should be manifested in the physical realm. Masculine, whether you call it Adam or whether you call it Abraham, Lot, Jacob, it doesn't matter. All of them are the same. We are talking about masculine and feminine energy. And what happened is the dominance of masculine energy has played a major role in the demise of the influence of feminine energy. And that was done on purpose. The Creator allowed that to be in order for above, as above, so is below, meaning that the Creator allowed that to be because we cannot be the functionality of Elohim if we are unable to create in our image and likeness. And the Creator having brought into this earth the inhabitants of Kabbalah, Africa, the inhabitants being the first people in this earth becoming actually a blueprint for humanity. And knowing that the primary purpose was to bring into existence an earth balance that is like the balance in the spiritual realm, meaning the physical earth is to be balanced like it is in the spiritual realm, and that only can happen through quote unquote humans. That can only happen by virtue of the people who are spiritual in this earth, bringing the whole earth to a place of embracing the spiritual essence of who it is, and that is not predicated upon individual males or individual females. It's predicated upon the recognition and embracing of the feminine energy as well as masculine energy, and understanding the nature of both. We have been taught rather that the weaker of the two is the female or femininity, when it isn't. I think I made mention of the whole concept of the maleness, masculinity being the hunter-gatherer, simply meaning that in the physical sense, the hunter-gatherer is the one who brings the bread. That doesn't make you the ruler of the house. It simply makes you a servant of the house. The house is actually guided and under the authority of femininity. The nurturing is femininity. The protector does not make you the ruler. The protector makes you the servant. And if we look at it from a spiritual perspective, then the masculine is bringing the seed of understanding and placing it in the womb of desire. And that womb bring the seed of wisdom rather, and place it into the womb of desire. And that womb of desire produces or births understanding. And that understanding comes with experiencing the spiritual itself. Therefore, when we talk about these different proper names in the scripture, we are actually misclassifying them when they should actually be understood as being spiritual, a spiritual message about how we are to function, a spiritual message that speaks to functionality versus dysfunctionality. And when I say that, I'm saying that when we look at the difference between Cain and Abel, one we see as functionality and another as dysfunctionality, but the question becomes which one is which. And when we look at that, we see that that is simply saying to us that every one of us are in a state of dysfunctionality. And when we're talking about bringing balance to ourselves, we are talking about bringing functionality to ourselves. When we talk about becoming aware of who we are and embracing it, we are talking about becoming functional as Elohim in this earth. And when we do that, when we become functional as Elohim in this earth, we no longer look down on those. Would you please mute your phones? We no longer look down on those or look at those sideways who don't understand what we understand. We see that we are obligated to bring everyone in this earth realm to a place of functionality, and when that happens, we experience balance. And when we talk about this balance, we are simply talking about the harmony that's in spiritual realm is also the harmony that we have brought into this earth realm. And the only way we can do that is by creating in our image and our likeness. And the image and likeness that we are created in is the image and likeness of forgiveness, mercy, loving kindness, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
George? Are you on?
Why he may be.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ron.
I see something that I said that I want to correct. At least I think it's a correction. I said before that when, I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Okay. I said before when they came out of Egypt that Lot separated himself from Abraham. And I don't see it that way. I really think Abraham separates himself from Lot. I think the encounter in Egypt is all Abraham's. And here's what I'm saying. If you look at chapter 13, verses 6 and 7 says, and the land could not sustain them while dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to remain together. And there was strife.
Before you go in that direction, I want to be sure that there are no questions about what was just said.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to be sure. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had not heard back from George who raised the question, that's all.
Okay.
Oh, I'm good, Reverend Richard, and forgive me for not responding to you. I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, you're good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking at this, and the next verse says, there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling there in the land. Then I skipped down, excuse me, I skipped down to verse 11. Now they've made a decision they need to separate, right? Verse 11 says, so Lot chose for himself all the valley of Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. That word each there is ish. 376 is ish. And if you notice, when he separates from Lot, is when he has another encounter with God. And all these places, we look at this scripture and we think that, okay, he's having he's dwelling under. Hello?
Would you please mute your phones? Would you check it? Make sure you're on mute.
So it looks like, all these places where it talks about trees, but if you notice in chapter 12, it talks about the oak trees, and again in chapter 13, it is a different place he is with the oak trees. The verse 18 said, Abram moved his tent and came to dwell at the oak at Mamre. which are in Hebron. Okay, Mamre means to flap your wings or to lift yourself up, to pick yourself up. So that doesn't take place until this separation here. So I'm thinking it is not Lot that is doing the separation. It is Abram recognizing who he is and further on his journey seeing that he is seeing the Elohim that he is. So the Ish, separated from each other, he recognizes that he represents mankind and not just a man on a journey. And he sees the importance of that. And just, I guess, just to kind of tie that in to everything that we've talked about. But there's a lot more there if somebody else sees. Yes, sir.
Go back to that separation with Ish. Read that again.
Verse 11 says, and so Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. And that word each other for each is Ish. I-S-H, man, mankind.
For man, not mankind.
Yeah.
Ish is masculine. Esau is feminine.
Right.
So they separated from masculinity. So the masculinity, the dominance of masculinity is what they separated from. And the dominance of masculinity is a message to us. Masculinity, in that regard, with Abraham and Lot, they separated from Ish. Then Lot represents the aspect of Ish that seeks to dominate for itself. And Abraham represents the aspect of Ish that recognizes that it is spiritual, as opposed to being selfish and dominating everything. Lot represents the aspect of masculinity that seeks to run the world its way. Abram represents the aspect of masculinity that recognizes that its enlightenment, the light of its journey is feminine. The tent, Sarah's tent, the light. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I can see that.
So when we talk about Lot and Abram in regards to what you have just read, then we have a choice to make, and we continuously make that choice. The choice is whether or not I'm going to be a political/religious entity and enjoy the power, the natural power of masculinity and dominating everything around it, or am I going to be even more powerful and recognize that I am Elohim and that my responsibility, my obligation is to bring humanity to a place of harmony rather than creating division and chaos. Make sense?
Hey, Rev, whatever you and Ron was saying was choppy because somebody's phone ain't on mute. Everybody check their phone?
Okay. What about now?
Phone number ending in 186. Phone number ending in 186. Could you mute your phone, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Pastor, then if you don't mind, I just, if you can do it quick, a kind of quick synopsis of what you said. What I had brought up was the separation of Lot and Abraham, what that really meant. And we were looking at verses in chapter 13, 6, 7, 11, and the latter part of the verse, or the latter part of the chapter, rather. But can you kind of sum that up again? What that separation, the main part of the discussion was in verse 11. So Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward, thusly separated from each other. And the word each is ish, and that we were talking about it's masculinity, it's man. And from there, if you don't mind, kind of go over that one more time for us, so we make sure it's clear on tape. If you don't mind.
Okay. What I'm saying is that the reason it said man is because it's a message, and it's talking to us about it's sending us a message rather, Lot being representative of that male dominance that we are experiencing and seeking to bring to an end, so we can have balance. And Abraham is representative of recognizing and embracing the spiritual essence of who you are, and take it a step further when it talks about Lot having chosen, or this male dominance having chosen the best parts, or having chosen the land that's more productive, meaning that rather than choose a spiritual journey, it has chosen a journey of material wealth, of material desire. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that in itself is telling us what we are experiencing even at this time in our lives. This is what we are experiencing. In other words, this whole idea of capitalism, this whole idea of male domination is Lot. It's Lot. And if you think about that attitude, if you think about that, this is not a man, this is an attitude. These are principles that people are living by. And you think about that and the description of Sodom and Gomorrah. It has been passed off as homosexual, but that's not what it's talking about at all. Sodom is a place where if you poor, you starve. If you were beggars, homeless people, or every place, and no people walk by them being homeless, being hungry, and not caring whether or not they live or die. That is where we are now. That's America, and the wealthy are the primary movers in that. And here and what we are seeing is that Lot represents that religion that protects that kind of attitude, because religion tells you that if you trust God, you're going to be rich. So that puts you in Sodom. And Lot is the protector of that. And what we are beginning to see now is what happened when that was destroyed. Abraham, the spiritual essence of masculinity, is the one who brought the seed into the womb of Sarah, the womb of humanity, in order for it to birth righteousness into the earth, which means that when righteousness was birthed into the earth, the destruction of Sodom began. The crumbling begun to happen, became visible. The crumbling did. And out of that man that attitude of man who sought to hold that intact, actually left, tried to leave it, but did not go to the place of spirituality. If you read that whole story, you will find that Lot went to a place no different than the place that he had just left. So what I'm saying is that that attitude is not redeemable. The thing that is redeemable is mankind. And when mankind redeems itself, it is then that attitude becomes less influential. And the influence to humanity comes from that femininity, that nurturing aspect of humanity. And even though that nurturing aspect is dominant, there is still that aspect of Lot. And that is the reason that the scripture talks about the tree in Revelation with leaves of healing, the leaves of deliverance, meaning that to understand the knowledge that we have as spiritual beings, we have we have not only the obligation, but we have the power to bring healing to those kinds of attitudes, meaning bringing deliverance to those who continuously or seek after reviving the attitude of Sodom. Now, this is simply saying that in the earth, even with righteousness prevailing, there are going to be aspects of that attitude that prevailed at one time that you're going to have to keep in check, and that is the reason for the leaves on the healing leaves on the tree that it speaks of in Revelation when it speaks about the new heaven and the new earth, a fresh enlightening understanding of spirituality and a consciousness in the earth that is one with, in concert with the spirituality that we were created with from the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes. And one of the things that this says is Lot went eastward. Eastward is interpreted away from the ancient one, away from true spirituality. It also represents the final cutting away of Abraham from family. It's easy to leave your country. It's easy to leave your city. It's easy to leave your neighborhood. Think about when you go off to school or something. It's easy to do that, but it's harder to leave your family. Abram took part of his family with him from the old setting, and Lot represented that old setting. And so Abraham's journey significantly begins to change once he cuts the umbilical cord with Lot, right? The family, and then moves forward.
Thank you, Barbara, because I was going to ask, what's the difference in Abraham leaving everything from his father than the one when he separated from Lot? And you brought it out. I just thank you.
Welcome.
And that's what makes it so difficult to relieve religious sentence.
I did not tie in verse 7, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. I'm assuming those is just talking about these were the attitudes, the prevailing attitudes in the land in which they dwell. So by naming those, I'm thinking they are saying that those attitudes had an influence on this decision being made. Or do you see something else there?
I hadn't looked at that one in years, but go ahead. Did you look at the meaning of Perizzites?
I got to looking at something else. I got to looking at 2 Peter, where it calls Lot righteous. I was trying to understand that, but I did not look at Perizzites.
Well, maybe we can look at that next time.
Okay. Okay. I thought that was interesting too, because all of this stuff, as we know, of course, by now, just seems like a nice little story to read, but all of these groves of trees and these mountain ranges and all these things have a meaning, and as we have pointed out, they have everything to do with your thoughts, decision, and even your frustrations, and we readily see that it's talking about us in the here and now, and not something that happened in the years past. So, another good lesson, another good day. Any thoughts or questions before we pause for the day? Okay. Well, I hope it was enlightening. And if not, if you have anything that was confusing or you didn't understand, please jot it down, and we'll begin there tomorrow, okay? But enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Thank all you guys for your questions, answers, input, your presence. Thank you, Ron, for facilitating.
Welcome.
Thank you.